Teaching English in the AI Age. I'm Misra from Austi Academy. We've heard AI can now write essays, so essay-based assessment is broken. And we need to either catch students using AI or find new ways to stop them. That framing is incomplete, and what it misses is the part that actually matters. So I want to talk about a problem that senior English teachers have been living with for the past 2 or 3 years and be specific about what the problem actually is. Because I think the conversation around AI and English teaching has mostly been happening at the wrong level. Here is what I think is closer to the truth. The essay was already a proxy for thinking before AI arrived. We asked students to produce a form, an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, a conclusion, evidence, analysis, a sophisticated response. And we treated the form as evidence of the thinking. For most students, most of the time, that worked well enough. The form was hard enough to produce, that producing it well was a reasonable signal that something was happening intellectually. AI did not break the signal of whether or not something is happening intellectually. It just made the gap between the form and the thinking visible in a way that we can no longer ignore. So the question is not, how do we stop students using AI to produce the form? The question is, how do we design assessment that captures the thinking directly, thinking that AI did not produce and cannot replicate? That is what I want to walk you through today. Before I get to the framework, I want to name 2 responses that I see a lot and explain why I think they treat the symptom rather than the problem. The first is detection. AI detection software is unreliable, and it is getting less reliable as AI models improve. And more importantly, even if detection worked perfectly, it would not tell you anything about whether the student understood the text. It would only tell you whether they used a particular tool. That is not the same thing. Maybe they did use an AI tool, but they actually understand the text. Maybe they didn't use AI and they don't understand the text. The second is supervised handwritten conditions. This has real value, but it also has limits. A student who can produce a fluent handwritten essay in exam conditions has demonstrated something real, but it is still largely the form. It does not tell you whether they had a genuine encounter with the text, whether they have thought about it in a way that is theirs. The most effective response has to be at the level of task design. We need to build assessments where the evidence of thinking cannot be retrofitted, where the student has to have done something, experienced something, reflected on something in a way that AI could not have done for them. The AI Resilient Assessment Design Framework that I've developed through Austi Academy has 5 approaches. I'm going to give you a brief version of each and then point you toward where you can go deeper. The first approach is anchoring assessment in the student's own reading experience. This means using reading journals, annotation tasks, and reflection, where the student thinks about their own thinking as part of the assessment, not as preparation for the assessment. AI cannot retrofit a student's actual reading experience. It cannot produce an authentic account of the moment in Macbeth, say, when a student first noticed that Lady Macbeth's guilt does not arrive at the moment of the murder. It arrives later and differently, and in a way that says something specific about how Shakespeare understands conscience. That observation, in the student's language, from that student's own encounter with the text, is evidence of the student's reading experience. The second approach is making the process the assessment, not just the product being the assessment. This means weighting reflection, weighting the drafting records, and AI-use declarations as well as part of the task. When a student has to account for how a response was produced, what they thought at each stage, what they changed and why, that accounting is itself evidence of thinking, and it's difficult to fabricate convincingly. The third approach is oral assessment for the parts that matter most. I know the logistics are real with a class of 25 plus students, but a 5-minute conversation with a student about their written response, asking them to explain a claim or extend an argument, tells you more about their understanding than the written response alone. It does not have to replace the written assessment. It can sit alongside it as a moderation tool or as a component of the task. The fourth approach is to assess transformations rather than analyses. Instead of asking a student to analyse a text, ask them to do something with it. Adapt a scene to a different audience. Write a chapter in the style of the author. Adapt a scene to a different audience. 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 Ada and then explain the choices, translate a passage into a different form, and account for what's lost in that translation. These tasks require genuine textual understanding, and they're also more interesting to mark. The fifth approach is structured discussion. A well-run Socratic seminar, assessed against clear criteria, produces evidence of thinking that is unambiguously the student's own. There are practical barriers, but these are manageable, and I've seen English teachers implement this successfully for the Stage 6 syllabus. Everything I've described is built for Stage 6 English in New South Wales. It is aligned to Misra outcomes. It's not a generic digital literacy program that has been adapted for English. The framework grew out of close work with texts that are actually studied. An Imaginary Life by David Malouf, Henry Lawson short stories, Macbeth, Frankenstein, Henry IV Part 1. And each of the approaches has been developed with these and other relevant texts in mind. If you're an English teacher trying to work through this for your own classroom, the free guide is a good starting point. It's called AI Resilient Assessment Design. It covers all 5 approaches, and you can download it at austi.org. That is austi.org. If you're a head of English thinking about how to work through this with your department as a whole, I run a half-day professional development seminar that takes teachers through the framework and then has each participant redesign an existing task during the session. Teachers leave with a task that is ready to use. The professional development is available in person or online, and it starts from $1,200 for a single department session. The conversation about AI and English teaching is not going away. I think the most useful version of that conversation is not about detection or supervision, but about what we are actually trying to assess when we assess literature, and whether our tasks are capturing that. If you want to talk about what this could do or look like for your department, email me at dan@austi.org. That's Dan@austi.org.